Hey car peeps of the world, welcome back to another episode of Jodo Garage. In this episode, as promised, we are going to be focusing on the rear exhaust. If you want to see how we go from this to that, then you better stay tuned. To get the exhaust from underneath the car into the trunk, we had to make an access port. And that's what you see here. We'll show next how we got to making that. So this is one of the corner pieces from the trunk liner, and drilled a hole in it because we need to route the exhaust from underneath the car into the trunk area. Got a 3-inch hole in here, 3-inch dimple die. Gonna dress up that hole a little bit. So got some WD-40 on there. It's always a good idea to make it smooth. Even though that didn't seem very smooth. It's always a good idea to put some WD on there to help smooth it as it goes through the process. So I just got this dimple die. It didn't have a 3-inch, so for this project with a 2 1/4 pipe, I wanted to make sure I had ample room around the pipe so that it wouldn't interfere. All right, let's look what we got. Look at that. That's pretty nice, huh? Nice dimple die, so the exhaust pipe is going to come right through here to the muffler. Another little accent tweak. I like that kind of stuff. And now we're knee deep into making the exhaust. So one of the things I learned by doing the first one was that just because you put collars on the pipe to fit the ends of the exhaust tubes doesn't mean that they're going to line up straight. So I welded the first one up, actually had to cut off this entire weld all the way around and to line them up. So you get smarter as you go along. I tack welded these and already put this like this on the table to get a flat surface and to make them line up. And now I have my exhausts very well lined up on the table, and so this is a good indicator that yes, I can get them where they need to be. So I can now finish weld along these edges, along these seams, and get it all welded up so that it starts looking like that one there. And then once it's there, we can fill that hole right there. Then we had to connect to the existing exhaust. We got a 90-degree elbow with a 45-degree with another 90. And that's where it's going underneath in the panel and coming up on the other side into the trunk area. In the trunk area, it protrudes through the previously made panels. And from here, we're gonna 90 over with a V-band clamp into the muffler, and from the muffler we will have two quad, I guess a quad exhaust, two 5-inch on one side, two 5-inch on the other side, both protruding through a hole in the back. Well, after an afternoon of puzzling, this is the result so far. This weld needs to be finished. So I need to take the actual pipe off the whole car. Good 4 or 5 feet under the car is a connector. I can take that loose. Then this whole piece of pipe can come out and I can finish welding that. And it is coming through the proposed hole. And underneath here is the band clamp that holds this piece onto that piece down below. So I can actually, once this whole assembly is in place, take that band clamp loose, take that band clamp loose on that side, and then this whole unit here will lift out of the trunk if that were ever necessary. So, as you can see, that is flying nicely horizontal. So this will connect into here. The other side will connect into the other side. This will go under an incline, and then this pipe will connect to here. Yeah, that's the plan. So far, it's working out. So here's the problem with modifying, right? So made the exhaust to come through, to come here, and that'll be the muffler connecting with the other side. But I also have the active exhaust, for which I need to make a cutout over here. But the active exhaust body is quite large, and it has these ears that are sticking out. And in order to fit behind the louver, I had to cut the entire frame rail and weld in a new plate so that I can put this behind and give it the room so that it's hidden by the valance. And then when the valve opens, the flow will come from the pipe straight out the valve instead of going to the muffler, and be more or less a straight pipe. A little worried about how loud that's gonna be, but hey, when you want performance, then that kind of goes with it. So quick lick of paint makes it look a lot better, and will be protected because I use the Eastwood rust encapsulator. No, not sponsored, but it's the stuff I got. Of course, now that I did that, I knew that I had to do something with this end also, but can't just leave that like that and have this nicely done like that. So created a bunch more work for myself. Now I'm gonna have to match that side. And just like that, we have a matching pair. Took a minute, but it was one of those jobs that was on my to-do list regardless, because I had to cap off those end rails. Now that's done, and it's done in a way that it actually is functional with the exhaust cutouts that I need to work on. So another job scratched off the list. So we are continuing the process of installing the muffler and exhaust system. So we've come up through the side, welded the muffler under 55.5 degrees, and now we're going to connect the exhaust tips to this part here, and we're going to establish that by cutting this nipple off, putting a 90 degree, and then cutting that 90 degree so that it will form kind of like a coping thing with a roll bar form around that tube. There we have the piece coped, ready to go. This is gonna sit on here. So I drew a line around the outside of it, and then when I remove it, I drew a line that's like, I don't know, a little over 1/8 probably, smaller than the outside hole. So that's the hole that we're gonna cut. And then when this sits over, that gives me a little bit of meat on the inside, and then I can weld this piece to that piece, and then this piece will get welded to the muffler. Hanging unassisted. Got them tacked in place. So that will be coming off once I get this side done as well. And then we can take the 2 band clamps on this side and that side off, take this whole unit out, and then finish weld that weld and that weld, and then the same that weld and that weld. So it's starting to look like something. Oh, well, this is something else, isn't it? Never seen a 67, 68 Mustang with exhaust coming through the taillight panel. GT40 inspired openings, 4 5-inch exhaust tips coming through that back end. That's gonna look pretty sweet. The openings are gonna be filled with mesh to kind of separate exterior with the interior. And then yeah, in here, and this is not finished welded yet, but you can see how you got the incoming pipe from the exhaust coming into the muffler, same thing from the other side, and then coming out, teeing off, and coming into these beautiful exhaust tips. I am super stoked with the way this is coming out. So that is the regular setting on my welder, but I also have a pulse setting. And the pulse setting gives you short little bursts where you can lay attack, lay attack, lay attack, lay attack, lay attack. The reason why I did that on this piece is this is the valve for the active exhaust, and I wanted to minimize the heat going into this piece. So you can see, you know, you just go around. So I started with the four corners and then went in between that, and just kept going around and around to kind of divert the heat to the different spots of the pipe. And so now we have the whole circumference done, and it's just all little tack welds that the machine spits out on its own. So next step, open up a hole in the pipe from the X pipe to the back of the car, and as shown, we welded with all the spot welds the valve to the coke piece. Now this is gonna go get welded onto the pipe here, and then you can see this part of the pipe coming from the X pipe. Here's the valve for the active valve setup, and this can open up and allow the exhaust to come straight out this way. And if it's closed, the exhaust is gonna go up through here, out the muffler, out the back. So the nice thing about this setup is that the wiring, the factory wiring, this will be in about the same place. So I don't have to really redo any of the wiring, which is nice. That's kind of how I set it up and wanted it to be, but you know, it's nice that it works out that way. So next step, welding this into place and then putting the pipe back on the car. So as usual, we'll find about 4 spots where we can kind of tack it together and make sure that it stays in place, and then you'll fully weld it out. So I made some marks on the pipe to make sure that I know where it has to be to line up properly when it was in the car. So we'll line that up, and then we'll find some spots where we got good contact, get a couple tacks in place. And here we have the entire exhaust system. The back part with the muffler and the 4 exhaust tips, and then the ends that come from out underneath the car. Time to put the primer on. And after a layer of primer, we'll do 2 coats of paint. Of course, this is the header paint, so it's made for high temps. That way we don't get issues down the road with flaking, hopefully. And there's the primer layer, all ready to go, drying, waiting for the top coat. First layer of black coat, finished. There's 2 coats of black. You see the muffler is not actually painted, and that's because we have this. So I took the muffler from the can that was sitting on and put 2 smaller cans to give me a free working area around here. Now we're gonna look at, okay, how much is the circumference of this muffler? And it's about 22 inches. So there's several layers that come with this. There is an insulating layer that we put around this first. So we have to take the length and the circumference, laid it out on here, then we can cut that piece that can go around. The next step is the metal. And I'm gonna oversize the metal a little bit and then fold it over the insulation on both sides so that you get a nice working edge on both sides. And then the last step is the straps that will go around and hold it all in place. So, guess we'll have to measure out the length of this as well, which is going to be about 13.5. So we'll cut the insulation at about 13. Then we can have a little bit of overlap with the edges, and then we can wrap that around. So let's get to that. So I've cut a test strip because I want to make sure that if I fold this over, that I can still wrap it around the muffler properly. So I'm gonna make it easy on myself and get started with a nice 90-degree bend, just so that we can have an easier time folding this over in a nice angle. So the insulating material will get right in between here, and now I can manually close this up. And then the next step, of course, is seeing if this will still wrap around the muffler. And so we're gonna do that, have a quick look, fold this around, and then what would that look like? And I think that we probably have our answer. You do have to tuck that tightly, but when you do, you get a pretty nice overlap. So of course the overlap is a little thicker, and what I may do is make an overlap on the metal but not on the insulation, and do that on the back of the muffler where you don't see it. But that gives a pretty nice oval where it works around that. So yeah, I think my thinking in this is correct. Now we can move forward in cutting the pieces that we need and then installing it. So let's get to that. So we've cut our piece. A little learning there. Circumference was 22 inches around the muffler, but as I cut it at 22 and I wrapped it around, I was an inch short. So I had to cut a new one, 23 inches. So now we're gonna oversize this piece by 2 inches, so I have an inch that I can wrap around on either side. Kicking stuff. There. So that is 13, that's 15, this is 23, and the metal will be 24, and the 24 will give me that slight overlap that I want to fold all the things together. If I can make it that pretty. All right, let's see how we do. Okay, so now we have our piece of 15 by 24. And this will be our piece that goes in between. So I'm going to lay this flat, make a mark on the outside of this, and that will be my fold line. So I can put the 90-degree bends on the fold line, put this piece in between again, fold the edges over, and then we can go back onto the muffler and get it all wrapped. So let's get these two edges bent. There, also nicely on the line. So now that I have this, I can get the insulation material laid in here, fold these edges over, and then we have a nice mat to wrap around the muffler. Let's get to that. So as mentioned, we'll put the mat inside of here because it was bent nicely on those edges. It's matching up properly, seeing how this can all work. Never done this before, so again, many firsts on this project. But if you don't do it, you'll never know. So here we are. So the reason why I'm doing this is so that I'll have a nice edge here that will present around the muffler, because of course the muffler is going to be an area that you want to see when the trunk is open. See what that looks like. So this is now nice and tight, and then we'll give a nice good crank here for the overlap, and then the next step is to wrap this whole thing around. Well, skipped a little bit ahead. I got the bands installed on the insulation on the muffler, and now I'm insulating the Y that is going back to the muffler that's going to have the exhaust tips on it, as seen in previous videos. So this one's done. That one needs to get done yet, so that'll be next steps. Once those two are done, then it's on to these that will extend into the pipes that come from the car. So you may wonder, why did you go through the hassle of painting these if you're going to wrap them anyway? Well, I wanted to get some protection on the welds so they don't rust, and yeah, a little bit extra protection never hurts for anything on the car, so that it lasts longer. So that's basically the reason why. Continue now with wrapping that Y. When you're wrapping these pipes, but this first part is one piece of wrap that's gonna go onto the junction here where the two meet, and then the second piece is gonna start on this side and wrap back to the muffler. So then you gotta kind of wonder, okay, how do you know, how do you get the amount of wrap that you'll need? So this is a 2-inch wrap, 2-inch wide, and you need about a 1/4 inch of overlap. So you can kind of gauge how many wraps it's going to take with a quarter inch overlap to get that done. Okay, so the circumference is 8 inches. We added 1 inch for extra. Then you say, okay, we have about 7 or 8 wraps. So now you can say, I measure the 9 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wraps. You always need a bit extra to go around the corner. So if you count, let's say 5, you know, give it 2 or 3 extra when you go around corners, because you're gonna need it as the overlap is bigger, obviously, with that, so you need more material. So then from there is a braided side and a non-braided side. I keep the braided side towards the exit because that's the exposed edge that you see, and then I tuck 45-degree under this middle here, and then I can start wrapping around and make my way around this. Try to keep this on the back side. I've got this tool. Basically, it's a socket extension with a slot in it, and you can put that on the tail to turn it. But in true fashion, if you turn it too hard, you'll mess up the clip. So what I've been doing is I'm putting a pair of pliers on it, So that basically holds the clip in place. And then you can put the ratchet on it. Alright, so now that we've got that somewhat the way we want it, I'm going to pull this back. I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to pinch it one more time with the pliers so that it lays flat. And I'm going to fold it over itself. So the tail over the buckle. When the tail is folded over the buckle, it cannot loosen up. And that's what you want, obviously. And then I kind of folded it in half on itself. And then I give it another quick crimp with the pliers, making it nice and tight. So that is the first step. I have to be careful, because what I don't want to do is dent this. I want to keep that nice, obviously. I gotta be careful that I don't do that. So now, I'm going to finish this red part. So now, we pretty much come where we need to be. Set it up straight. Press the paint can. Pipe. All right, so now that I've got this where I need it to be, I can actually cut that so that we can tuck it. See, and for something that looked like I was going to weigh too much, I only have, in the end, have that much left over. So there's not much waste. But we have that done. I'll show you guys real quick. So this is the one side, and that's the other side. So this is what I'm talking about. You fold when it comes out, cut it, fold it over itself so that it locks the lock in place. And then you fold it over itself again, back that way, and then you kind of crimp it, and then it sits, and it's nice and tight. So you can see this is starting to look pretty nice. As always, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the episode. This exhaust, man, it's something else. I really like it. Hope you do too. Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, on the next episode. See you then.